back claws are never really as sharp as front claws anyway, but they're not badly frayed. Yeah, they look good. Once I've got a chance, I'll check her front claws, which are the ones that are always nice and sharp. Yeah, the front claws, as expected, are a lot sharper than her back claws. The toes are sort of arranged in a way that if you put pressure in the right places, their claws will come out, and then we can check them really nicely. So it's just a good opportunity, especially to check the back claws, because we don't often get to see them. It's easier if she's awake to check her front claws, but it's always a good opportunity to just check. And then once Rob's happy and done what he needs to do, we can do a quick check over of her body condition score, so what her weight is and what an appropriate weight for her is. We can check her teeth, just have a good feel of her, make sure we're happy with everything else. We can weigh her as well, and then we can put her back to bed.
Okay, so the good news is actually, instructally, I don't think there's been a penetrating injury. The slightly more concerning news is that the cornea has got a really infected area within it, involved quite a lot of the central cornea, and it looks like that pus we could see on the photographs, which we thought was a reaction to a damage inside the eye, is actually a reaction to what's going on in the cornea, and that's unusual. Tend to see that more associated with fungal infection of the cornea rather than bacterial infection of the cornea. So it would be great if we can get a sample looked at ASAP to see whether I can pick up whether there's any fungus there or not, although I suspect probably the fungus is actually quite deep within the cornea, and therefore I'm not going to have sampled it anyway, but that's where we're at. It is causing a slightly raised pressure in that eye, which is not an unusual reaction to an infection like that, but it's not disastrously high. The question now is that can we manage this medically, which I think is going to be unlikely, or do we have to try and do something surgical in order to remove the infected area? And if I'm cutting out that large central area of cornea, what am I going to replace it with? So, number of options. What I'd probably try and do, if you imagine the cornea is a bit like onions, sort of layers of onion, is if I can take off the superficial layer where I don't think there's much infection in there, I can then create a graft out of that, lift that up, cut out the entire infected area underneath that, so we get rid of all of the infected material. Then I'll pop in an amniotic membrane graft in there, and then bring that superficial flap back over and close over to reseal the eye.
Is it fair to do the surgery and try without that being an ethical issue?
Is there a high enough chance of success?
Yes, and also what do we find by success is that it's great if I save an eye, but that's not any use to her if it's not visual. And yes, we are grafting quite a large part of the eye, but I still think the visual outcome would still be really good if it does work. Absolutely. But once we resolve the issue, she's not at any increased risk of it coming back again. So that would then be the problem resolved. It's just if we don't respond to the treatment in the next couple of weeks, then removal is the only way forward with that one.
Fine. No, I think if it's not ethically, unsound to try, if we think there's a chance, a good chance that it could work.
I would take all of these cases that present like this in the equine population to surgery.
So you'd give it a go, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Knowing that we've got a better than 50-50 chance of success, but talking percentages when you've got no data at all, it's a bit of a fool's game.
No, I totally appreciate that. Okay, I'm happy that we try. If you guys are happy that we
I'm happy.
try.
I think it's not such a low chance of success that it's just purely academic. It gives her a real world chance, and at least then we've tried. And if it's successful, amazing. If it's unsuccessful, we'll only end up in the position that we would have been as a plan B anyway.
And she will be much more comfortable once this is done anyway, because we'll have taken away the driving source of the irritation, which is the actual infection. That's what's really driving the discomfort in this eye. So once we removed that, then things will be much more comfortable anyway.
Okay. Yeah, lovely.
Cool. So what we're doing is we're just raising the area of cornea I'm going to use to close the hole first before I start making any big cuts actually into the cornea. So this flap here will be the bit that slides forward. Okay. Is a simple answer because this is not normal, so I don't know, I haven't measured the other side, but I'm going to assume somewhere in the region of sort of 0.6 of a mil, but this is about 1.5 mil thick anyway, so.
Wow, you can see her eye properly underneath as soon as you put it.
Yeah, so that's now looking sort of more transparent there. So I should now have enough graft that when I chop all this hideous cornea out of here, I can get that up and over.
Yeah.
And then this, I think, is just, that's the bit I'm really worried about. That bit there is just yellow infiltrate. I think I'm going to trim that back a bit further anyway. But that doesn't strike to me as being grossly infected. That's the flocculent material there that's my main concern. But we've got plenty of spare cornea here to start trimming all that off, so that's fine. We're going to get a bit ugly for the next bit. We're basically going to pop the eye open. So this might be acutely painful from an anaesthesia point of view. So I'm just going to close over what now looks a very healthy bit of cornea over a much happier bit of cornea, and then let that eye reform from there. That's the best way of doing it.
And what is that you're putting in, Rob?
So this is a drug called tissue plasminogen activating factor, which is what you get when you have a stroke because it breaks down clots. So all that clotting of the aqueous inside the eye that's stopping that iris from pinging open beautifully, and then just drop the atropine to go, thanks, will hopefully break down with that without me risking the integrity of my wound too much. And that is that.
For about a week and a half, we've been keeping really close monitoring of Zaya, our 7-month-old snow leopard. We originally saw that she was keeping her left eye closed an awful lot, which is not normal. We monitored for a day, but when it was still the same the following day, we got in contact with the vets, and from then we had to start treating her with oral antibiotics, also pain relief, and she's actually been having 6 eye drops every single day. It was really becoming clear that something really unusual was happening with Zaya's eye, and the situation didn't seem to be getting better. If anything, it was possibly getting worse. So we had to get back in contact with our specialist vet, and today he came along with an eye specialist in order to see her under anaesthetic. So today we were joined by Elliot, our International Zoo Veterinary Group vet, and Robert from OptiVet Referrals, who is an amazing eye specialist. And they needed to have a really close look at Zaya's eye under anaesthetic with the view to do surgery if that was needed. Robert was fairly honest at the beginning that we wouldn't necessarily even really be able to save Zaya's eye. What we always have to do with these animals is make sure when we're making these big decisions for them is that we are keeping both her short-term as well as her long-term welfare in the forefront of our brains, and doing absolutely whatever it is that's right for her. So really all there was left to do was to have her go to sleep, bring her over to our vet room, and then Robert could take over. Rob was very happy with how the surgery went. There weren't any terrible surprises. He was able to deal with everything that he found. But what I will have to do is just pass over to him for the details.
So really lucky to be able to have the chance to examine Zaya today. And once we got her anaesthetised, we were able to have a thorough look at the eye. We'd obviously seen photographs beforehand, but up close we could see that there was quite significant infection throughout the cornea. So all the layers of the cornea were affected, and actually the infection had broken through into the middle of the eye, which at that point becomes an absolutely sight-threatening condition. After discussion with the rest of the team here, it was decided that the eye was savable, and not only was the eye savable, that sight was retrievable as well, and that we should pursue a surgical intervention in order to remove all the diseased tissue. So I was able to start by creating a graft from a healthy area of cornea adjacent to the area that was infected, which I would then later use to patch the hole I was about to create. And then we moved forward to the more complicated and tricky part of the surgery, which involved cutting out the diseased tissue. So we were able to remove a large part of the infected material from the front half of the cornea, and then we could see there was a deeper infected area that then broke through into the middle of the eye. And by cutting that out, I was able to remove all of the obviously infected material. And at that stage, the eye actually started to look much more comfortable and happy once that was removed. Once we got that removed, I also then had to patch the eye back up again, so I was able to use that graft I'd raised earlier and slide it over and suture it in place. So there were probably about 40 sutures used to close that graft up to make sure the eye was then watertight and sealed, and that allowed me then to reinflate the eye and form a normal ocular structure. We've taken some samples to look at what type of infection might be involved with this. The most likely at this stage is likely to be a fungal disease, and that can be quite problematic post-surgery, so we'll need to make sure she gets some very intense medication going in order to try and give ourselves the best chance of saving this eye. Should we get through the next couple of weeks on medication and the eye start to improve from here, then we should see a return to a more normal visual function in that eye. And long term, we wouldn't expect this to cause any further problems or for her to be at any increased risk of developing this problem again in the future. There may be a degree of scarring, but animals cope quite well with corneal scarring, so we would anticipate that her vision would be normal enough in that eye that she'd be able to function and climb trees and do all the other things that snow leopards like to do when they're relaxing in the sunshine.
As I'm sure you can imagine, aftercare for species like this is very, very different from your domestic cat. It can be far more difficult, and we still have a really long road ahead of us of healing for Zaya. What we are going to be doing is continuing with her oral medications, as well as still continuing to try and get eye drops into her eye at least 4 times a day. So if you are visiting the sanctuary in the near future and you do see Zaya, she will not look completely normal. Her eye does not currently look normal. It is in the process of healing, and that is going to take a number of weeks. All of our cats are incredibly important to us, and please rest assured that Zaya will be getting the best care we can possibly give her. So I hope to be able to tell you in a few weeks that she will be back to normal.